There is a particular kind of horror that does not arrive with a scream, but with a hum. Low, constant, and impossible to ignore. It lives in the spaces left behind when someone vanishes without explanation, in the slow creep of something invasive at the edges of domestic life, in the quiet suspicion that the person sitting across from you is no longer entirely who they once were. This is a horror rooted not in spectacle, but in erosion of identity, of intimacy, of certainty. It asks what grief does to the human mind when it is given no closure, how absence metastasizes into estrangement, and whether the true monster is an external force closing in, or the altered self that emerges when loss is left to fester underground. Hello friends, and welcome back for another short film review here on ETF. Joe Pellegrino's NYMPHAL is a film that hums before it speaks. It vibrates in the air like the cicadas that frame its story. Ubiquitous, cyclical, deafening. On its surface, it presents a rural mystery. A father and daughter navigating local murders, a vanished wife, a missing ice cream man named Mr. Sprinkles, and the slow, invasive creep of bamboo swallowing the backyard of their trailer. But beneath its sparse narrative scaffolding lies something far more psychologically corrosive. NYMPHAL is not merely a surreal horror film. It is a meditation on disappearance, identity erosion, and the monstrous transformations grief can enact upon the human psyche. Cicada season is not an arbitrary backdrop. Cicadas are creatures defined by latency and eruption. They spend years underground before emerging en masse, shedding their skins, screaming into the trees, and dying shortly thereafter. Psychologically, they embody repression and return, the buried trauma that resurfaces with overwhelming force. In this film, the natural world is not neutral. It is accusatory. The encroaching bamboo functions less as flora and more as an advancing subconscious, overtaking domestic space with invasive insistence. It grows in silence, but signals that something underneath the soil, something buried, is preparing to break through. The film's overarching theme of vanishing operates on multiple psychological levels. The wife is gone. Mr. Sprinkles is gone. The community is touched by unexplained murders, disappearances. Even the father seems partially absent, hovering in scenes as though misaligned with reality. Disappearance here is not simply physical, it's existential. People are not just missing, they are erased, leaving behind negative space that distorts everything around it. This aligns the film with Lynchian territory, where absence becomes presence and silence carries unbearable weight. Yet Pellegrino infuses this sensibility with a grime and volatility reminiscent of Blue Ruin, and the grotesque absurdity of The Greasy Strangler. The result is a tonal instability that mirrors psychological fragmentation. The father is the axis around which the instability spins. Throughout the film, he feels subtly inhuman, not overtly monstrous, but disconnected. His effect is off by degrees. His responses are slightly delayed or emotionally muted. There is something hollowed out about him, as though whatever once animated him has thinned. On a literal level, the film's climax suggests that he may not be human at all, that he is this cicada-like entity, an emergent creature from the bamboo-choked earth, who has just assumed the role of husband and father. Taken at face value, this positions NYMPHAL as a creature feature, cloaked in art house ambiguity. But to read it only this way is to miss the film's deeper psychological horror. The idea that the father is not of this world functions as a metaphor before it functions as myth. Grief has a way of alienating the bereaved from their own humanity. When someone disappears without explanation, there is no closure, only a festering wound. The mind cannot metabolize the loss. It loops, it imagines, it projects. In this state, one becomes estranged from oneself. You look in the mirror and see a stranger. You speak and the voice sounds mechanical. You perform the role of parent and partner, but internally you are underground, dormant, waiting. The cicada creature interpretation externalizes this psychological condition. What if the man truly is something that has emerged to replace the original? Trauma often feels like replacement. The person you were before is gone, supplanted by something more brittle, more reactive, more alien. This other in NYMPHAL is not solely an external invader. It is the mutated self that grief produces. This is where the film's seething madness becomes critical. Pellegrino constructs the narrative like a pot left too long on the stove. Nothing explodes immediately. Instead, tension accumulates, microscopically. Glances linger, sounds buzz. The bamboo grows taller. The murders in the community feel less like plot devices and more like psychic leakage. Violence bleeds outward from the interior rot. By the time the film shifts into full cosmic horror at its climax, the escalation feels inevitable. The boundary between internal and external horror collapses. The Lynch meets Lovecraft synthesis is not aesthetic posturing. It is thematic convergence. Lynch is preoccupied with identity fracture and the terror of the mundane turning uncanny. Lovecraft, meanwhile, locates horror in the realization that humanity is insignificant within a vast, indifferent cosmos. NYMPHAL merges these anxieties. The father's possible inhumanity suggests both personal disillusion and cosmic indifference. If he is a creature, then human identity is fragile and permeable. If he is merely a man undone by grief, then the cosmos remains silent, offering no answers, only the oppressive hum of cicadas. Importantly, the film refuses to explain itself. Mysteries remain unsolved. Motivations are murky. Events are not neatly contextualized. This refusal mirrors the psychological reality of loss and trauma. There is rarely a satisfying narrative. The wife's disappearance is not clarified. Mr. Sprinkle's fate lingers like a grotesque urban legend. The murders blur into the background noise. In withholding answers, NYMPHAL denies the audience the comfort of containment. We are left in the same liminal state as the protagonists, uncertain what is real, what is metaphor, and what is festering projection. The bamboo itself is perhaps the film's most potent symbol. Bamboo spreads through rhizomatic roots underground before erupting in visible stalks. It is nearly impossible to eradicate once established. In this way, it mirrors unresolved grief. It begins beneath awareness, small, subterranean, rationalized. But left unaddressed, it overtakes everything. Domestic space becomes hostile. The backyard becomes a forest. The familiar becomes alien. When the father stands against this backdrop, he appears increasingly absorbed by it, as though he belongs in the growth more than the home. The true horror of this film may not be that the father is a creature, but that he has emotionally vacated his humanity long before any cosmic reveal. The daughter's presence sharpens this tragedy. Children often perceive emotional absence before they can articulate it. Her interactions with him carry a quiet tension, an unspoken recognition that something is wrong. Whether he is literally a cicada being or psychologically transformed by loss, the outcome is the same. She is left navigating a world where stability has dissolved. By the time the film descends into full cosmic horror, the shift feels less like a genre pivot and more like a psychological unveiling. Cosmic horror traditionally suggests that the universe is vast, unknowable, and indifferent. In NYMPHAL, that indifference is intimate. It exists in the unanswered disappearance, in the unsolved murders, in the unspoken distance between father and daughter. The cosmos does not roar. It hums like cicadas in the trees. Ultimately, NYMPHAL operates as a study in metamorphosis. Cicadas shed their exoskeletons. Grief sheds the self. The film suggests that when something vanishes without explanation, it does not simply leave. It transforms what remains. Pain, left unattended, metastasizes. It grows bamboo through the backyard of the mind. It replaces the man in the house with something stranger. It turns loss into mythology, because mythology is easier to confront than the raw fact of absence. In this way, NYMPHAL is less about a creature emerging from the earth, and more about what emerges from us when we cannot reconcile disappearance. It is horror not because it shows us a monster, but because it implies that monstrosity may be the final stage of unresolved grief. An inhuman shell formed around a wound that never heals. Well, friends, that's gonna be all for now. If you are interested in this film, I urge you to check it out for yourself and formulate your own thoughts and opinions about it. I hope you come share those thoughts and opinions in the comments. Let me know if there are any movies that you would like to see discussed on this channel. I always love to hear from you guys, and I do my best to try and respond to everyone. As always, I've put a link down in the description to a physical copy of this film, if one exists, that you can add to your collection. Using that link helps out the channel, and that's always appreciated. If you like this video, I urge you to give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you aren't already. I know that some of you watching aren't subscribed, so help out the channel and subscribe. If you'd like to go the extra mile and support the channel even more, we do have a couple options for you to do so. You can join us on Patreon, where you can get yourself early access to future videos, Patreon exclusive content, and access to the ETF Digital Archive. We get a lot of compliments about the VHS collection that you guys see in the background of our videos. Well, we've been hard at work slowly digitizing the collection and creating a place where we can share it with all of you. Thanks to the help of the Plex platform, we can now do just that. This is our way of doing our part in helping preserve that gritty, nostalgic VHS look and feeling before it's gone forever. With Plex, you can stream our VHS collection from anywhere at any time. It's basically like having a streaming service for VHS, which I think is pretty cool. Additionally, if you're tired of adding to your growing list of monthly subscriptions, you can help support the channel on Ko-Fi, where you can drop a single tip, the cost of a cup of coffee, or less. No pressure, no tiers required. But with all the same monthly benefits that you will find on Patreon offered as well. We also have a Mercari store where you can go and get yourself a little piece of the ETF archive. While collecting VHS, Blu-rays, and DVDs over many years, we wind up with lots of duplicates, and we unfortunately can't store them all. So on our Mercari shop, we have all of those for sale. Purchasing those not only expands your collection, but makes room for us to expand ours. All the links for everything are down in the description. Until next time, stay safe, and as always, thanks for watching.